Hello, everybody, and welcome. Thanks for joining me for 3 things you must know before embarking on a detoxification program. My name is Stephanie Ewalls. I'm a certified nutrition specialist and licensed nutritionist focusing on functional medicine and getting to the root cause of illness. So I specialize in hypothyroidism and Hashimoto's disease and autoimmune disease. And particularly the fatigue that comes with that. And fatigue is a huge problem for a lot of people. And while there are many things that cause it, needing to detoxify can be a major culprit. There are a myriad of ways toxins can affect our health besides fatigue. And doing a detox once or twice a year might not be the best idea. It might actually make your health worse rather than better. And that is what we're going to discuss today. So I'm going to share my screen with you so that you can get a look at some slides. So you don't have to just look at me because that's not always super interesting. So we'll go ahead and get started. If I can figure out how to make my slides go. There we go. All right. So we've already kind of gone through this. This is me. It's my website is outofthewoodsnutrition.com. So we are all toxic to some degree. And there are a variety of ways that can happen. The World Health Organization estimates that around 4.9 million deaths per year are attributed to environmental chemical exposure worldwide. And in addition to that, around 86 million disability adjusted life years are attributed to environmental chemical exposure as well. About a quarter of global disease burden is due to modifiable environmental factors. The disease burden by endocrine disrupting chemicals alone costs around $209 billion. So those would be chemicals that might be estrogenic or may disrupt some other hormones in the body. So anything, of course, dealing with your endocrine system. And environmental toxins or xenobiotics, which they're referred to in the scientific literature, affect all people, no matter their financial status or where they live or what they do. This is something that affects everyone. And the genetic cause of cancer is only about 10%. The rest of that, it comes usually from our environment, including diet and lifestyle. And the sum of all toxins we're exposed to account for about 10% of chronic disease. All right, and scientists estimate that everyone alive today carries within her or his body at least 700 contaminants, most of which have not been very well studied. And a toxin is defined as anything internally or externally that interferes with good health. Today, we're talking more about chemicals, specifically chemicals, not like water can be toxic, for example, if you have too much of it. So we're not really talking about that. But over time, as we age, these toxins build up to what can become significant levels over time. And that is an important part of this talk. All right, so what are toxins? So really, you can, again, be exposed in a variety of ways. As of 2012, the number of industrial chemicals on the global market was around 144,000. And there's a chemical database called CAS or CAS.org, and around 200,000 chemicals are added to this database weekly. Clearly, there's no doubt that chemicals are entering the environment and we are being exposed on a daily basis. All right, and so this is a picture of somebody spraying pesticides. Pesticides and herbicides, I mean, it could be an herbicide as well, but it's probably a pesticide. But these are used on crops in our yards, things like that. They're comprised usually of more than one chemical. So the example I'm going to use for you is Roundup, because everybody knows what that is. The main chemical or active ingredient in Roundup is glyphosate. Now, that, according to the makers of it, is relatively safe. And one thing that is of note here is that the FDA relies on the makers of the chemicals to conduct their own studies to prove their safety, because if there's 200,000 chemicals being added weekly to a chemical database, there's no possible way the FDA has the time or the resources to test all of these for safety. So they're just relying on the makers of the chemicals. So that compound may be considered safe all on its own, or generally recognized as safe. But the safety profile should be done on all of the chemicals in that product. And when all of the chemicals in that product as a whole are tested, it was found to be 1,000 times more toxic than glyphosate alone. This is what's called a mixture effect. And this is the case with any chemical product that you might be using, including some household cleaners. So again, that mixture effect is not considered at all when you're talking about safety profiles of products. All right, so other things that you can consider: toxin exposure, stress hormones, infections, poor digestion, sex hormones, especially women's hormones, especially estrogen, pollution, radiation, food sensitivities, medications, and your office or your home, especially a new office or a new home, because there's a lot of off-gassing of chemicals that are going on there. So you can think about any of that, mental, emotional stress as well. All of these things here can contribute to your toxic burden, because it doesn't allow your body to work properly when you're continually stressed. All right, so how do you know if you're toxic? Very good question. So there's not a whole lot of reliable tests for you to do. There's blood tests, urine tests, hair tissue mineral analysis tests. These don't really reflect what's going on in your tissue, only what's floating around in your blood or your urine. And hair samples only reflect toxin levels over a couple of weeks. And stool samples will only assess what's leaving the body, not necessarily, again, what's in the tissues. And that's the important part. Much of the toxins that we store are in fat tissue. Therefore, they're not floating around our blood. And different toxins will store in different areas of the body. So you might have, a specific type of toxin in your breast tissue compared to your thighs or your belly. And the levels of toxins in blood, urine, and hair will fluctuate depending on a lot of things, including our nutrition status, any deficiencies that we have, any medications that we take, if we are on a calorie-restricted diet, how hydrated we are, how hot or cold we are, so if you're sweating, if you sweat a lot, and even if you exercise or not. So it can all affect the level of toxins in our blood. And since testing isn't super accurate, the best way to assess toxic load is to look at your symptoms first. Then you complete a specific questionnaire that's geared towards toxic exposure. There's a great one from the Institute for Functional Medicine, which I use. And you can also Google a KEESI, which is QEESI, I believe. It's a really common toxin questionnaire. And then you do a detoxification program, but we're going to talk more about that. And then you reassess your symptoms, and then you redo the questionnaire to see if things got better. And then maybe you need to do it again 6 months later, do the same thing, reassess, redo the questionnaire until you start to see the numbers in the questionnaire decrease. Okay. So how do you recognize toxicity in yourself? It helps if you are really in touch with your body and if you have symptoms that you notice how you feel and how things make you feel or how you react to things. But if you've tried everything to get better, but nothing has worked that works on most people, then there's a pretty good chance that you might be dealing with some toxic load. If you have any allergies, sensitivities, infections, autoimmune disease, if you feel better when you leave a state, town, residence, or you stop a hobby, any of those types of things, then you can tie it to something. I know that my daughter's music teacher, when he came to her school, got really quite sick in their music room because the carpet was moldy. And he just started to develop respiratory infections quite frequently. So it's a really something to think about. You can try to tie it to something like that. How does toxicity affect your body? Well, it can affect your body in a bunch of different ways. And here's a few. Typically, these things will start with immune system dysfunction, and then they extend to neurological, endocrine, GI symptoms. So the GI symptoms could be due to the alteration of the gut microbiota, so that's your microbiome, what kind of bugs are in your gut. Inflammation is a very general term, real popular term. That's anything that in your body is causing a problem usually, and it's usually immune system related as well. Trouble breathing, again, nutrition issues, brain fog, memory issues, infertility, painful periods, erectile dysfunction, abnormal bowel movements and stomach problems, things like that. All right, so this is one of the big takeaways from this talk. You probably are not healthy enough to do a detox unless you exercise regularly, sweat regularly, eat a really clean diet. Then maybe you wouldn't have to really be too concerned about that. But otherwise, most people are not healthy enough. So I just want you to keep that in the back of your mind, because a lot of us have heard of juice fasts, right? So juicing is a real popular thing. Juice fasts, master cleanse, that's what the picture of the maple syrup and the lemon and the cayenne pepper is. Please don't do these. Again, like I said, unless you are relatively healthy already, you might be able to get away with it. Most people are too sick. And I really encourage you to work with a qualified professional. Get your body relatively healthy before entering a detoxification program. It should be really the last thing on your list to do, because it isn't a magic bullet and it can actually make you sicker. There are, one of my mentors told a story of a guy that he worked with who had clients who went to another country to do like a week-long water fast, and year after year these people would go back and they'd be sicker every year, and that's because you're losing those, you're mobilizing those toxins from losing fat, but then you're not excreting them properly, and then they redeposit in other places. Another example is 60-year-old woman who went on an Atkins diet, lost 6 dress sizes within a year. 2 years later, she died from breast cancer. So you just really want to think about what you're doing when you're embarking on things like this. Detox programs, again, should be the last thing you do when making diet and lifestyle changes. They should be a year, 18 months down the road before anything else. Or after everything else, I guess is a better way to say that. Okay, so more about juicing. What I want you to think about here is normally you juice more fruits and vegetables than you would eat in a sitting, right? 5 to 6 celery sticks, 3 carrots, an apple, and a bunch of greens. Maybe if you're vegetarian or vegan, that might be your meal. But most of us are not eating that in a sitting. So all this is concentrating. There's no fiber to help pull stuff out of your body. And juice is great. I'm not saying don't drink juice. I'm just saying be mindful, be careful, because it can inhibit your body's ability to eliminate the toxins. And I'll explain that a little more in a couple slides. But one thing that you need is protein for your own body's detoxification processes to work well. There's no real protein in a juice fast. So you're actually stopping one of the phases from working. Okay. Other things that are common in detox programs. I'll try to move this so you can see the whole thing. This is silymarin, the little purple flower, green tea extract, and then curcumin. These things are really common in detox programs, and they are great compounds. They're excellent for all kinds of things, but they have a place in someone's health. But they also keep toxins in a cell from leaving the cell, which causes the toxins to get retransformed back to their toxic form and then redistributed into tissues. And we know this from cancer drug research, because these compounds are used to help keep cancer drugs in a cell to kill cancer. So we just want to be thinking about that. If you're taking green tea extract, it's stopping the stuff that you've transformed to leave the body. It stops it from leaving the cell. So again, make sure that you're doing this with somebody who is aware of this type of stuff. Okay, so how does detoxification work? If you go back to your high school biology, perhaps. I don't remember learning that in biology, but that was a long time ago for me. So we have 4 phases of detoxification. And this is sort of just a picture of the process of how it works, how it enters and how it exits. So it's entering through the lungs, the skin, your gut, and then it goes into the liver, gets transformed, and then they exit through the skin, your kidneys, your colon, through feces, your kidneys through urine, skin through sweat, and lungs just through breathing. But more specifically, there are 4 phases of detoxification. I guarantee if you Google phase 0 detoxification, I did it, and I couldn't find one single image on phase 0. And that's because it was discovered in the early 2000s, so it's fairly new. It's not on a lot of people's radar. On average, it takes around 20 years for what's in the literature today to reach conventional medicine. So some stuff that I've read recently, other people might not know about for 20 years. Who knows? Unless they have time to read the research. So phase 0, that's how toxins enter a cell. And it's called phase 0 because phase 1 and 2 were already around, and they didn't need to rename those. So phase 0, toxins enter a cell. Green tea extract will prevent toxins from entering a cell. The other 2 will prevent them from leaving a cell that I talked about. So between silymarin, green tea extract, and curcumin. All right, so in phase 1, enzymes break down the toxins. They transform them into mostly even more toxic things, and then they're shuttled over to phase 2. And this is all happening mostly in the liver. It happens in other places in the body, but mostly everybody talks about the liver, so we'll just stick with that. There are various processes which are protein dependent. Transform these to the more toxic compounds from phase 1 into harmless water-soluble compounds, and that's how we get rid of them. And then phase 3, that's how they're transported out of the cell for elimination, again, via these routes listed here. If things are being mobilized for excretion and they get distributed because you don't have the proper channels open. So again, you need to be sweating, you need to be hydrated to make sure that you're peeing a lot. You need to make sure that your bowels are moving well. So lots of fiber is really good. These can go into other places like your joints, other tissues, muscles, and then they can result in things in the little yellow box. So skin rashes, for me, that's how all of my symptoms ever present, is through my skin. But you can see diabetes, type 2 diabetes, headaches, hormone imbalances, IBS, really super common in a lot of people. It could be related to your toxic load. All right, so should you do a detox program? I think by now you probably know the answer is no. But if you are thinking about it and you're sedentary, even slightly overweight, if you're over 40, if you don't really exercise, if you don't feel great, have some kind of chronic illness, then no, do not do a detox. Anyone doing any type of weight loss diet or detox program that is not able to eliminate their toxins being transformed and released has a much greater chance of flooding their system with these toxins. Again, I feel like a broken record, but which will be redistributed into other parts of the body. I want to make sure that point gets hit home. That is very, very important. So again, if it's not done properly, you can feel worse. And that feeling is cell damage from phase 1 working better than phase 2, usually because you're not eating enough protein to ensure that phase 2 is working well. Okay. So 3 things that must happen in order for someone to be able to detoxify. Again, toxins must be mobilized. Your body has to be able to get them out of fat storage in the first place. And you don't have to starve yourself to do that. You might have to eat a few less calories, but you don't have to be starving. Your body has to have the ability to biotransform them from toxic to water-soluble, harmless compounds that can leave the body, and they have to be excreted. Sweat, urine, feces, those are the big ones. If they're not excreted, they will go somewhere else in the body and take up residence. And obviously, they're all leaving through our respiration, but that's involuntary. We all breathe. However, you might be able to control more how much you breathe or how deep you breathe, and that might be able to help a little bit. So we're not really focusing on breath. All right, causes of impaired detoxification in the body. Exposure to toxins, which build over a lifetime in your body tissues. That's why nobody over 40 really should embark on a detoxification program until they're relatively healthy, because the older we get, the more time we've been on Earth, the more toxins we have absorbed and accumulated. So we want to be really mindful of that. We don't want to be releasing a bunch of stuff and then not be able to get rid of it. If you're dealing with constipation or kidney dysfunction, those are going to be a problem for detoxification, because again, those are 2 main routes of removing toxins, through the kidneys and through the bowels. Having a poor diet, standard American diet, lack of vitamins and minerals, poor protein intake. Most people, especially women, are not getting enough protein. And then lack of antioxidants. Blueberries are a really great source of antioxidants. So eating some of those every day can be helpful. All right, so what can you do? This is a lot, but you can just start slow and just maybe don't do a detox program until you're healthy and, again, well supported by a professional. Limit your exposure to chemicals. This can be your everyday thing that you can do. Try not to cook in plastic. Try not to store hot foods in plastic. Think about those polyfluorinated compounds found in grease-resistant packaging. So fast food wrappers. And fast food containers. You're exposing yourself to that kind of stuff each time you eat those. So think over your lifetime how many times you've had those things. Using Scotch Guard on your furniture, Teflon, leather treatments, shampoos, dental flosses, even denture cleaners. So you can look for more natural versions of those things at, you can buy a lot of that stuff online. Thrive Market is a really great resource. It's like a more natural food store online. I think it costs $65 a year to belong, but they usually have pretty good savings. And then you don't have to leave your house to go to the store, which is nice, especially in the wintertime. But anyways, so maybe switch to cleaner household cleaners. My favorite household cleaner is called Branch Basics. It's a concentrate. You mix it with water, and I clean my entire house with that. That's what's in our hand soap dispensers. I've been using that since about 2015. And you can add essential oils to it if you want. Great cleaner. It actually, in the laundry, has taken blood stains out of things, which is fantastic. Can't say enough. Again, that's Branch Basics, branchbasics.com. I actually have a referral code for that, but you can reach out to me if you want to use it. Okay, and then shop using the Dirty Dozen Clean 15 from the Environmental Working Group. This, you just go to ewg.org. You can look up Dirty Dozen Clean 15. They have a database for like skincare products, but they'll list the top 12 to 15 produce that is sprayed with pesticides, and the cleanest ones that you don't have to worry about buying organic. So a great resource. It changes every year depending on what's sprayed, and a really informative website. So buy leaner cuts of meat, of the meat you eat the most of, if you cannot buy from local organic sources. Though with the price of groceries these days, it might be about the same price to try to find some local organic farmers to buy from. But the reason you buy lean cuts of meat, or trim the fat off of the meats that you eat the most of, is because mammals store toxins in their fat tissue, and animals are mammals, and we don't want to be eating their toxins. This is farmer's fish, but avoid farmed fish. That's what I meant. Try to get wild caught, limit your sugar. Avoid artificial sweeteners like aspartame. That's been linked to some neurological issues in people. Cook your meats low and slow over fried, grilled, charred, that type of thing. Braising is good. And just remember, you need a well-functioning, healthy digestive tract, balanced blood sugar. You need adequate vitamins and minerals. You need a good digestive tract, good working digestive tract to absorb any of the nutrients out of the food that you eat in the first place. So that's really key. And then again, make sure you're eating enough protein to be able to have functional phases of detoxification. And then just a short recap, the 3 big takeaways here: we're all toxic to some degree, and you must be relatively healthy before embarking on a detox program. There are no good ways to physically test your toxicity levels, and all routes of elimination, bowels, urine, sweat, must be open in order to ensure the removal of toxins. And I think we are at the end. Thank you so much for hanging in there and listening. And if you need any help figuring out if you're ready to do a detox, you can reach out to me at outofthewoodsnutrition.com or email me at Stephanie@outofthewoodsnutrition. And at my website, you can download 5 things your doctor won't tell you about hypothyroidism. And I believe there is a downloadable guide on foods that love the liver that you can get also from the summit. So that's just a good thing, because your liver does all kinds of things, but mostly detoxification. So as long as you're feeding your liver what it needs, that's also very helpful. So thank you so much for hanging in there, and I really appreciate it. Take care, everybody.